Growing up, we were very active and outdoorsy as a family. So when I had a spinal cord injury at 14 years of age, I really thought my exploration in the outdoors was over. And so instead of doing outdoor activities, I changed my mindset and my focus to wheelchair sports.
In my opinion, this race is Lisa Franks, this lady right here, versus the world record.
And had a really successful career. I competed in wheelchair racing and wheelchair basketball, and represented Canada at 3 Paralympic Games.
She's looking for 1:11:33. Will she do it? Yes! 1:09:53 for Lisa Franks, a world record.
My name's Lisa, and I live in my wheelchair accessible camper van. Come on and take a tour with me. Welcome to the inside of my van. It's a Ford Transit with a high roof. Even though I can't stand, I wanted to consider guests coming in and that they'd be comfortable in here, but I certainly don't need the height, but it is good for storage. Since I'm in a wheelchair, I'm lower and I can't reach upper cabinets, so my cabinets are really large and they're lowered so that I can get to them quite easily. So in this cabinet, I've actually got a pull-down shelf. It can keep all my canned goods, which are heavy, up on the top shelf, but I can pull it down and lower it so I can still access that. This other cabinet is just a free-for-all. It's for the bigger items, and I can access that by kind of getting up on the side of my wheelchair, and it's really disorganized, but it holds a lot of stuff. To close my cabinets, since they're upright, I can't reach them from my wheelchair. I've got a little string that I just give a tug and they come down. That was the easiest solution that I could come up with to make it accessible for me. All of my cutlery and plates and pots and pans are kept in this area. When it comes to maneuvering in a small space with a wheelchair, small details really mattered. So I chose recessed drawer pulls because if they were to stick out, they could get caught on my wheelchair and on my spokes. So this really helped simplify and give me a bit more room in the kitchen hallway. I also really needed to consider how much floor space I have. My wheelchair takes up a lot of space, and so I needed to make sure I had enough room in the living area, in the kitchen, to be able to move back and forth and also do a full spin. So I've actually added some extra flooring over the step of my van. I was somewhat restricted with the cabinet height because I wanted a fridge that would last at least a week with groceries. When I'm working from the wheelchair, it's really nice to get close to whatever I'm doing. So with my cooktop, I wanted to be able to roll underneath, and that means I can reach the back burner easier. So I put my cooktop in a drawer, so it folds away nicely, it's out of the view, but then to work with it, I just pull it out and I can get very close to it. I've also got a pull-out chopping block. That's where I do all my preparation for cooking. I just wheel under it and then I can slide it away and it's a nice clean look. I did the same thing with my sink. You can see there is a space there so I can fit my wheelchair in there and I'm not reaching sideways from the counter. In addition to all the storage I have in the kitchen, I have a lot of storage in the garage. The garage was intended to just be a big wide open space so it could be really changeable for whatever equipment I have in the garage. And then I just added these plastic drawer sets. That houses things like extra bike parts or the electronics that I have for all my gadgets. The nice thing about having these drawers just in there is that I can take them out if I want to change what's in the garage, but I can also still access it from the living area and I don't have to get outside the van and go all the way around to the back to get to all the things in the drawers. One of the things I really don't like about van life is that to get to one thing, sometimes you have to move 3 or 4 things and I just don't have the patience for that. To try and get rid of that, I created this shelf that's open on both sides and it houses a lot of the things that I use frequently, like my jackets and my tools and my books. And because I can access it from the inside or the outside, it's a real benefit for me. I don't have to get inside the van to get my jacket. So next to the door is actually a bench, and initially it just housed a porta potty, but I did not use it in the full year that I had it, so I took it out. I just mostly rely on campgrounds and public washrooms and gyms and things like that for the bathroom. But I wanted to have something in case I'm out boondocking. So I ended up cutting out the lid of the bench into the shape of a toilet seat. I use a collapsible bucket and just deal with it that way. A shoulder injury after my 3rd Paralympic Games sidelined me, and I ended up living for several years in chronic pain with that shoulder injury. I barely left the house. I had anxiety, I had depression. Life was pretty bleak, and when I was going through that, I just wanted to get back to a normal life and get back to enjoying things again. My 4th shoulder surgery helped me a lot, and I started doing more activities. And as I was going through that transition, I had to think about what was important to me in life and thought back to growing up and what brought me so much joy, and that was being in the outdoors. So in 2017, I packed up my Honda Element and I went on my first camping trip as an adult. Having a tailgate party. Best part about my bike rack, it swings away. That experience showed me that the outdoors aren't inaccessible. So I started dreaming about van life and ordered a van with the hopes that I could do long trips. Just as my van arrived, I was actually laid off from my engineering job. At that point, I said I might as well move fully into my van, and that was 3 years ago, and I haven't looked back since. This is the bench that just keeps on giving me ideas. This bench is also how I get up into bed, because my bed is really high to house my mountain bike. So I put a standing desk actuator inside the bench, and that makes the lid of the bench rise up. So I just transfer onto the bench, push a button, and it turns into an elevator that gets me into bed. Up here is the bed area, and I have a full queen size bed, but at nighttime I have to share it with my surfboard, which isn't the best cuddler. Since moving into the van 3 years ago, I've had 2 different bikes and 3 different surfboards, and so I really wanted to make sure that I was flexible with how I would store those pieces of equipment. And so my bed has actuators on all 4 corners. I can raise the bed to whatever height I need, and I can lower it. Being able to adjust the bed was a really useful thing for me. I have all my clothing storage here in the cabinets. It's not the best thing to have the storage up here because I have to be really organized in my day. So if I know I'm gonna go to the gym or whatever, I have to make sure in the morning when I get down, I have a change of clothes. Otherwise, I spend a lot of time and energy getting back into bed. Like every van, I have roof vents and exhaust fans, and for me, I wasn't able to reach them and open and close them manually. So I have everything in the van on remotes, including my lights, and I keep one remote for the lights in the van up here in the bed. So at night I can adjust those as I need, and then I keep a remote for the lights and the fan down in the main living area. That just is a convenience thing, so I'm not having to always be moving around trying to adjust the lights or the fans. I did choose a van that has windows all around. That was mainly for natural light, but I also like the fact that if I hear a noise outside, I can take a peek and look and see what's going on around me. So having that awareness was a big bonus with the windows. Along this wall, I've got things that friends have given me. It just makes it nice to have a little piece of home wherever I am. When I ordered my van, I made sure to include a power sliding door. With my lift and my shelving here, it's just not possible to be able to reach the handle from the inside and close it. So this was just another accessibility feature that I needed to keep in mind when designing the van. In the summertime, I make Saskatchewan up in Canada my home base, and it's just known for mosquitoes. Since I usually have my sliding door wide open, I had to figure out a way to keep the bugs out. My screen, it's a lot like a curtain. It just slides across my door, and that way it's out of the way when I need to use my lift, but I can pull it across and it keeps the bugs out when I'm not using the lift. The wheelchair lift that I have is probably different than what most people are used to seeing. People are probably more familiar with a platform lift. I really enjoy cooking and having my sliding door wide open. I didn't want a lift like that blocking my view, so I selected the Super Arm wheelchair lift for my van. It has a lot of benefits. Mainly, it just takes up a small space. The lift is actually really convenient for parking too. A normal platform lift, I would need probably about 4 to 5 feet for the platform and then space for me to roll off with my wheelchair when I'm parking, but I can almost fit into a normal parking space because I just really need the length of my wheelchair next to me when I park. This is the column for my wheelchair lift, and it's only about 6 inches wide. And I offset it a little bit. It could have been here, but I wanted to make sure I had room for this storage shelf. I wanted a table that I could use outside, but didn't want to have to go dig it out from the back of my van. So I came up with this little table that folds down, just props into there. It's just big enough I can have a plate of food and my favorite beverage. It doesn't take up really any room. I don't have to fiddle with setting it up every time. I added this belt to help strap down my table, and this is actually my dad's belt. He passed away about 5 years ago, so it's nice to know I have a little piece of him while I'm on the road. This is the extra bit of flooring that I added, so in this space is where I can do a full 360 turn with my wheelchair, and then underneath it there's also room for my shoes right now. It can also flip up, it's got a hinge, so then if somebody does need the step to get in, if it's just a little too high with the flooring, that's available as well. When I moved into the van, my priority became to work on my mental health. I'm saying yes to great opportunities. In this stage of my life, I just want to do things that will be really good for my well-being. By far, my favorite thing about this lifestyle is that I can be so mobile. Within the adaptive sports community, there are so many people that connect online, and we have interests like surfing and mountain biking, but we're all so spread out, and so it might just remain an online friendship. But with me, I have the advantage that I can plan my route and I can make my itinerary based on those people that I've met online. And so I've made several trips up and down the coast, and I've worked it so that I can meet other people that are doing the same sports and have the same interests that I am. And so I think that's been probably my favorite part about van life. As I mentioned before, my entire van was designed around the dimensions of my bikes. So the back space is housing my electrical system and my water system, but I wanted to make sure I had enough clearing here for the different bikes that I do haul around. For my electrical system, I have a 2000 watt inverter and 200 amp hours of lithium batteries. I have 300 watts of solar up on the roof. The water tank I have is 32 gallons, and it's right here. I can last about 2 to 3 weeks without filling my water tank. I do find it difficult to find places that are accessible to fill up my water. The bike I'm currently using is a pedal mountain bike, and it has e-assist, so it's great that I can just charge my bike right here. I've got an outlet here. I have a DC-DC charger, and so I can get lots of juice while I'm driving and not wear down my batteries. I have upgraded my ramps from 2x6s to these light vinyl ramps. It does have a channel, so it can go straight up the ramp, or I can flip it over and have it go up that way. I just really like these because they're so much lighter than the 2x6s I was using before. Underneath my bed, I've got a winch that is mounted, and I just connect that to the bike, and it does all of the work. It just rolls it up nice and smoothly up the ramp. When I'm surfing, I use a paddle to propel myself onto a wave, and so I carry a few with me at a time, and I decided to just suspend my paddles from the underside of my bed. I actually cut up a Home Depot bucket. My paddles just slide right in, and that's where they live. I really like to cook outside, and I'll use my propane stove out here. Just a few months ago, I added this little outdoor table. I actually had a propane water heater on the back door. It was meant for a shower, but really I never showered outdoors, so instead of having that in place, I now have a great outdoor table. On the topic of showers, I do rely a lot on campgrounds and gyms, but I also noticed that they're not always accessible and unusable for me. So if I am boondocking or just need an accessible shower, I do have a temporary setup that I can use inside the van. I use the hot water heater that is underneath my sink, and it just has a handheld shower attachment on it already. And then on the floor in the space where I usually can spin my wheelchair around, I just put a 3-foot diameter temporary pool that I put on the floor, and I transfer into that and use a shower that way. So one of the biggest questions I get is how I drive, and I use a really standard system called hand controls. Underneath my steering wheel, I've just got this lever system. So to brake, I just push the lever in, and when I want to accelerate, I pull it towards me. Because it takes one hand to do the gas and the brake, steering can provide an extra challenge. So I have this spinner knob that makes me have a lot more control. I can even do a U-turn quite quickly and easily just with one hand while I'm operating the gas with my other hand. If you want to follow me on my van life and outdoor adventures, you can find me at keepingitwheel306 on YouTube and Instagram. Thanks for joining on the tour, everyone. Remember, keep it wheel.